This material right here is for the rails and stiles of the door, the vertical and horizontal pieces that make up each and every door. The first thing I have to do, put a straight edge on them over the joiner, and then rip them up on the table saw. Stiles for all of my cabinet doors are 2 1/4 inches wide. More for strength, but it's also quite a tradition. I've got about 150 more lineal feet of this to rip up, so I've got to get to it. With my rail and stile stock all milled up, now it's time to glue these panels up. The first thing I got to do is I got to run these over the joiner so they're nice and flush. I'm going to reference the fence off that X I had made before. Now it's time for a little glue up. I don't use biscuits here. The long grain of the wood with the long grain of the matching side is plenty strong enough with this glue to hold this panel together. I'm not being real particular. I'm just making sure that I've got good coverage on both pieces. Using a brush, spreading it on there nice and even. I don't want to use too much because I want to try to prevent too much squeeze out. You want to have a little bit of squeeze out of the glue. A little too much can get messy. I also have to make sure when I'm done with these panels that I scrape off all dried glue on the outside surface because it can really dull up my planer blades, which is where these guys will be heading as soon as they're all dried up. Make sure my sides sit nice and flat. Pull them up so the glue starts to squeeze out. I like to take a board and a rubber mallet, just pound down the edges of the board near the clamp. One more tightening. Take a rag, get off as much glue as you can. I'll set this guy aside and do the others. While the panels are gluing up, what I've been doing now is just starting to mill up my door parts and shave my beard off. Now, what I do with each of my doors is I make sure I mark them, because when I have all these door parts sitting around the shop, I don't want to get confused with their locations or whatnot. I've come up with all my sizes of a list I generated from when I measured my face frames a little while ago. This is my last door. I put the number on a little piece of tape, put it on the rail, set it in the pile. I'm going to set my table saw off here in a second and start milling my door parts up. Here's an example of the door we're going to be doing in this kitchen. It's called the shaker style door. Flat rails and stiles, flat panel. The way I build all my doors, I put the raised panel on the inside. You still get a 1/2 inch panel instead of a 1/4 inch panel. The door has a little more weight, a little more stable, really has a good thump when you close it. The first thing I need to do is, for these door parts, is run a groove on the inside of all these to accept the panels. Just a simple tongue and groove joint that I do over here at the table saw. I've got the table saw set up with my dado head cutter, 3/8 inch height. I've got the fence set just far enough away to try to get that groove right in the center of the door parts. All my door parts are over here. What I'll do is, I'll run the piece through one way, and I'll turn it, and I'll run the same piece through again. That way I know the groove is right in the center of each piece. With my mortises and my grooves all cut in all my door pieces, it's now time to start forming the tenons of the doors. To do that, I've got the table saw set up with my saw blade at the right height, the fence set at the right depth, and I've got a miter gauge to help push them through. What I do is I take the rails of the doors over, set them down, push it through, turn it over, push it again, do the other side, and do that for the rest of the doors. With all the shoulder cuts milled in both ends of all my rails, it's now time to run the pieces vertically through the saw to remove the rest of the material, completing the tenon. To do that, I'm going to use my tenoning jig and the table saw. When I'm through cleaning them up, I like to just put the doors together to see how they fit. Set it aside, do the rest. With my door parts all complete, my rails and stiles, my tongues, my grooves all done, now it's time to start focusing on the panels. Everything came out of clamps. The first thing I need to do before I run it through the planer is to take off all the dried glue that had squeezed out and gone on the clamps during glue up. To use that, I use a Stanley No. 5 jack plane. Because our panels only need to be a 1/2 inch thick, and I've used 3/4 inch material, I've got to use the planer to take off the excess material so my panels will fit inside the doors. Now that the panels have gone through the planer and gone down to final thickness, I then sent them through the drum sander to take out any chatter marks. I then spent some time cutting each and every panel to its final size. Now it's time to start raising the panel. The first thing I'll do is I'll run it through the table saw. I've got the blade tipped to about a 12-degree angle to remove most of the material. Then I'll take it over to the shaper and do the rest. With a relief cut here on the panel, I'm going to use the shaper here, which has a panel raising bit on the inside, the large 3.5 diameter bit. I'll remove the rest of the material, making our final profile.